Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
All right, welcome. Hello, my name is Paul Feith, host of this show where I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations. Some say mission-focused, maybe others will say purpose-driven. I know there's both phrases going out there, but mission-focused is what I like. Organizations always leading from the heart, inspiring others, including myself, and making a difference in our communities. This episode is sponsored by none other than Gregory Media, or affectionately known as PGM. They are a digital marketing agency devoted to nonprofits and also a certified B Corporation. To find out what a B Corporation is and what Gregory Media does, visit paulgregorymedia.com. That's the end of that. With me today, or any day, depends on what day you're watching it, but it is a day. I have with us Kendra Connor. She's the Executive Director of the Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation. Welcome, Kendra. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, so we're going to dive into a couple of things, and we talked a little bit before we started recording. You joined the Treasure Chest Foundation as the Executive Director in July of 2023, so relatively new, about a year and a half now. And you came on board with the goal of expanding, and I'm reading this from your LinkedIn profile, I think. You came aboard with the goal of expanding on the amazing and solid foundation built over the past 27 years. So this organization has actually been around a while, which was started by the founder, Colleen Kissel. And you bring with you now in this year and a half tenure, your years of experience in the nonprofit sector as both a volunteer and a fundraising director, program director, and advocate supervisor. That must have been with CASA, I believe, right?
That is correct.
Whenever I hear the word advocate, I think of CASA. And you also obtained your master's degree it was actually a master's of science degree, right? In nonprofit management from Grace College.
That is correct. Yeah.
Wow. What a impressive resume.
Thank you so much.
So what I'm interested is, let's just talk about the foundation. Let's start with that, which I don't usually do, but I'm really interested in what the Treasure Chest Foundation does. And that's actually, I guess the full name is Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation.
Yes. So that's the full legal name, depending on what we're using it for. Sometimes we do shorten it to Treasure Chest Foundation because it's honestly a little easier to say. But yeah, the Treasure Chest Foundation, we provide toys and gifts and gift cards to kids and teens who are going through cancer treatment. Because cancer treatment often is like years long, they go through a lot. There's a lot of procedures. Some of them are very painful. And honestly, who wants to be in the hospital multiple times a week getting poked and prodded at? So anytime they go into the hospital for any procedure whatsoever, the kids get to go to a treasure chest. And it's a big boy, and they get to open the lid and pick out a toy anytime that they go.
This kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid and we went to the dentist, and there was always that treasure chest that you picked out some age appropriate toy back then. Is this a similar concept?
It's a similar concept. I know that Colleen started it because when her son got cancer, and he's doing great. He every year does a fundraiser where he climbs 17,000 foot mountains and everything. But he started not wanting to go to the hospital. And so she would wrap toys, put them in the trunk of her car. So when he was done, he got to go out to her car and open a toy. And when she realized that wasn't really happening at the hospital for any other kids, that's kind of what started it. So yeah, they get to pick a big old toy because the cancer treatment isn't fun.
Yeah, and it seems to provide that welcome distraction from you got to go. At least you get a nice present or toy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
When I've talked to parents, they appreciate it because obviously they have a hard time with it as well, because who likes to see their kids in pain? And on top of it, it's a distraction for the kids. So then the parents can talk to the doctor and the kids are, kind of distracted, have something to do so the parents can focus.
Oh, nice. And then afterwards, do the parents get something age appropriate, like a car or a?
Yeah, I wish.
Depends on the funding, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so this is not just some treasure chest stuck in the corner of some facility somewhere in our county or state or whatever, because you have multiple locations. Talk to us about where these are located or how many are out there.
Yeah, sure. So we actually just opened our 69th opening in Baltimore, Maryland. So I actually went on a road trip, drove the treasure chest and all the toys down, was able to open that there. We do have 55 active locations. So sometimes they close due to hospitals merging or an oncologist leaves and they don't have a program anymore, stuff like that. So 55 active locations, 69 openings, and they're in 22 states now. So,
so not just Illinois.
no, not just Illinois. Yeah. So majority of them are Illinois because it's roughly every hospital that has a pediatric oncology department in Illinois. There's a few that we're not in, but like we're in Edwards in Naperville, we're at Rush, we're at Lurie's, we're in Winfield, so they're everywhere
Right.
close by, most of the Chicago hospitals as well. And then we've kind of branched out where, it's 22 states currently.
Wow. And talk about mergers and acquisitions. So Edwards, which then became Edward Elmhurst, which then became Endeavor.
Yeah.
And then you were sort of right there with them the whole journey, right?
Keep going. Thankfully, a lot of the hospitals have really good teams. They have nurses and what they have child life specialists or what they're called. So they're kind of like social workers in that department that, they're not quite nursing staff, but they're not, quite social workers. They just work on the pediatric floor with the oncology kids. And so they kind of maintain the program for us. So we have a lot of different relationships with a lot of different child life specialists.
Nice. Well, it's good that you have the relationship there too. So I had a question, and I hate, when you get older, it just you've got something good and then it leaves you. So I may come back to that. But the foundation, well, I guess I am coming back to it. The funding model. So do you get any support from the county or the state or the federal government, or is it all donation based?
It's currently all donation based.
Wow. That's able to support staff and the program.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we get, grants from local organizations, but a lot of it is a combination of a couple different businesses and then just individual people who are very generous. And we are very, very thankful for them.
Yeah, I did take a look at the annual report. I think you have the latest published one online, and I saw pages and pages of individual donors.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I saw some of the grant from the private companies there as well. So there is a lot of love there, it seems, given every year. So that's great. And it's a good model too. What I'm interested in is two things. Maybe the journey that led you here, because before this, you were with CASA of River Valley for a long time. You were with DuCap, I guess it's DuPage County Area Project. You were I guess you were a volunteer at all these organizations, but there you were a fundraising director as well. And what interested you in the Treasure Chest Foundation?
I think it was just the opportunity, well, lots of different reasons, but to step into a new role, having a lot of the experience and going through the master's program. It was so beneficial. The program at Grace is great because it was all very hands-on. Because I think sometimes with education, it can get a little heady. And it was very educational that way, but it was very hands-on of like, let's get in, and you were able to pick either the nonprofit you worked at or just a random nonprofit and like do all the work that an executive director would do. So I was excited about, stepping into the new role, and then just, I don't know how you could, know about the mission of the Treasure Chest Foundation and not fall in love with it. So, helping kids with cancer, giving them hope and joy and distraction is just a mission I think anyone could get behind. So I was really excited to jump in.
Yeah, I'm smirking because we kind of talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
And, we talked about like supporting, educational systems or volunteer promotion, and all worthy causes, great causes, and then save the whales, and it's an exaggeration, but animal-based nonprofits. But when you talk about children going through cancer, that really tugs at the feels, doesn't it?
It really does. Yes.
So that's a hard one. That's a hard one to pass up. I can see why you chose it.
Yep, definitely.
And so, what's your journey been like? Because now that you've been there for a year and a half, what does that look like for you? And what does it look like for the organization?
Yeah. So I had a great base of 27 years worth of building an organization to kind of uh, start on. And it was, a very grassroots. I think you kind of see that with our funding sources in some ways. And I'm, it's been a year of, you know, working with the board and our volunteers and the staff of, what do we do to make it to the next level? Like, what does that look like? How can we get there? And also getting people on board with that, because that's a major part of being the executive director, is getting people on board, helping them see the mission, the goals, all of that fun stuff. So that's been, I would say, a majority of my year.
Yeah. So, and have you? That's the organization. I'm wondering about you personally as well. How have you grown in this role?
Yeah, I would say it's really pushed me to step up in a lot of ways, specifically in different leadership capacities. Whether it's, I have a bigger staff to supervise, and so I've had to work on just those individual relationships and how to best lead people individually, because I feel like that's more important than just being a good leader, is individually working on those relationships in order to be a good leader. I think
So you found like that one-on-one nurturing has been successful?
yes, because it is a smaller team in general, so I think I have that extra time to work with them one-on-one, but I think that is more beneficial, especially in the field that we're in, because we're in a heart field. So you have people who work here that are very heart oriented and driven. So in order to, lead them to, okay, let me figure out where their heart is in all of this, and then it makes it a whole lot easier to
Yeah,
be a good leader. Yeah, just stepping up in a lot of different ways. There's a lot more FaceTime with different things in the community. Really have to kind of put yourself out there.
always. Yeah. People need to know about the mission, right?
Yeah. And sometimes there's, days I don't want to. I want to stay home in my pajamas and work from home. But
Right, right.
there's a lot
Are
of
you guys
face.
pretty much a remote workforce or do you have an office?
Not really. We have a warehouse in Orland Park. So for the most part it is on site.
Okay. We don't want to give out that address because there's a lot of toys there and we don't know. We don't want people helping
It's on,
themselves.
people can find it if they really want to find it. Honestly, though,
Uh,
we let people come in and we do tours. I mean, it takes
oh,
5 minutes to do a tour, but one of the great things, my favorite thing about the tour, is in the lunchroom in the back, there's a giant map of the United States on the wall, and we have a pin for every treasure chest that we have. And it's kind of just, people can't grasp the concept of how many we have until you like kind of see that board. So that's kind of my favorite thing.
yeah. And you also have the next best thing on your website too. I think you have colored in the states where you have a presence. So that's the next best thing. But
Yep.
yeah, if you want to check out a tour for the organization, you can see the pins. And so I'm sure there's 20 some odd locations just in Illinois, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we're getting to the part from a leadership lens, challenges, right? So you've been here a year and a half. You've had leadership roles before this. What are some of the challenges that you faced that you had to overcome in this journey? And I know it's been only a year and a half goes by so quick in a nonprofit. I feel like, at least in hindsight, it does.
Yeah. I think it's a very wise person once told me that our weaknesses are just our strengths out of control. So, I think that one of like the struggles I had to get over is my youth. So I know I probably look younger than I actually am too. I'm not going to tell people how old I am, but it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And that can be a strength and weakness. Obviously, being young and having a different perspective is a great thing. But also when you look young, people tend to uh maybe underestimate you. Maybe they don't take you as seriously, kind of a thing. So I feel like there was extra things that I had to prove because of my youth. Um,
Well, I certainly don't know you as well as your board knows you, but looking at your resume as a master's in nonprofit management and your experience with CASA and the DuPage was it the county area project and others,
mhm.
right? So it's not really for lack of experience. That would be something I would just check off my list and say, okay, it's not that.
Yeah.
Because as a board member, and I told you this, as a board member, I would think, wow, finally, we have somebody that can relate to the next generation and
Mhm.
take us from a grassroots movement to the next level.
Yeah.
And um, I would hope that your board appreciates that aspect of your involvement.
Yeah, I think they do. They're a pretty great group of people.
Yeah. Any other challenges that you
Yeah.
faced?
I mean, I think you kind of covered it with the moving on from the grassroots. So, there's different things that you have to do when you're trying to level that up, whether, you're adding different operational procedures, you're adding different just parts of the organization that, weren't active, weren't looked at before. Um, and again, getting people on board for those kinds of changes.
Sure. Well, from an optics standpoint, too, I mean, you had some kind of big shoes to fill, right? Because it was run for the last 25.5 years
Yeah.
by the founder. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how do
That's a
you,
challenge.
or how do you get out of that shadow?
Um,
Or do you embrace it?
yeah, I think it's an embrace, you embrace it kind of a thing. And always coming from a perspective of, anything I want to change, it's out of appreciation for something that she did. So it's just framing things the right way to the right people of, we're we might be changing this, but we're not changing it because what was done in the past was wrong, but because it was done right, we can change this now.
Right. And I always, I'm not a fan of right or wrong because I'm not sure if that has a place in business. There's this or that, or there's differences sometimes. I think when people use that language, and I think Colleen kind of really built something special here, and I think
100%.
everybody agrees with that. And
Mhm.
and I think it took a lot of uh, courage, and there's probably other adjectives in there too, to let go a little bit and let
Yeah.
somebody kind of take over the reins of that.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if I was her, there's no way I could have let go of this baby. There's no way. So
Yeah, well,
I'm extremely thankful for her and everything that she built, and, the time I had with her before she officially retired, the what she poured into me, I will always be forever grateful for that.
wow, what a wealth of knowledge that must be
Mhm.
in that. So, something I'm going to just kind of bring up as we finish off here. Not many people maybe know this, although if they just went to your LinkedIn profile, maybe they'll find it. You're a second Dan black belt.
Mhm.
That's pretty amazing. That's it takes a huge amount of discipline, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually the lead instructor at Christ Centered Combat, and that's where I got my second Dan at. For people who aren't in martial arts, second Dan is second degree.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I love that. That's where I tend to volunteer my time, is there at the organization. I love teaching the kids to TaeKwonDo and Combat Hapkido, because I have a second Dan in Combat Hapkido and a first Dan in TaeKwonDo.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
thanks.
And so how long have you been involved in that?
Um, the organization will be 9 years old in February. So in February, it'll be 9 years.
Wow. And I mentioned that takes a lot of discipline and time management, among other things, right? And I'm sure that discipline filters into your everyday work life. Right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of focus, a lot of discipline, and that, carries over into the work here with, I'm sure people being executive director, there's a million plates spinning constantly.
Sure.
And being to manage all of those.
Yep. I have a famous saying that I've never seen an executive director without 40 balls being juggled in the air. It's just a fact of life.
Yep, it sure is.
Well, looking to the future, and I think this is one of my last questions. Looking to the future, if everything was advantageous, what would the next year or two look like for the Treasure Chest Foundation to you?
Yeah, I think we would have growth in a couple different areas. So like growth in, funding areas. So getting bigger grants is kind of a focus that I have currently. And the continued expansion of opening treasure chests. So we try to open 2 to 3 a year. And I mean, obviously the ultimate goal is to make sure that any kid that has to go through cancer treatment knows the hope and joy of a treasure chest. But for, a year or two, hopefully 6 more treasure chests, I'll say.
Okay. Well, are you looking to also not just have more locations, but to accelerate the growth if the funding were there?
Yes, definitely. One of my big things now is making sure that everything is sustainable. So as we grow, making sure that the funding and the toys are there. Because one of the great things about the treasure chest now currently is I don't have to buy any toys. We get toy donations throughout the year, most of them from November to December.
Yeah.
They supply the treasure chest mostly for the entire year. So making sure that that continues to be sustainable if I were to continually open more and more and more.
Okay. There's an episode I did with Rick Lochner of RPC Leadership. It's a couple months ago, and he talks about the social enterprise. I've always loved that. And so whenever I hear somebody say if they have enough funding, his argument for social enterprise is if you have a program that's funded and then you base your next couple of years based on what you think your funding will be, you're going to limit your growth. And conversely, if you come up with a plan, like I want to open up 60 new centers, it's got to be sustainable, of course, but I want to open up 60 new centers in the next 5 years, which is lofty. Then the idea is like, oh, how do you sustain that? So you got to find the money, basically, right?
Yeah.
Find the money, find the toys. And that's what's defined as a social enterprise. And businesses have an opportunity to grow much faster if they can find that money and find, in their case, find the toys.
Yeah.
So I always enjoy those two alternative ways of thinking when it comes to scaling a nonprofit. It's a great episode, so I'm just going to give a shout out to him about that because it's one of my favorite topics when it comes to nonprofit on nonprofit management. So it's been great learning about the organization. It's been great learning about you. Love the whole second degree black belt thing, and remind me never to piss you off.
Got it.
And I would just say then, any other parting thoughts for our listeners out there?
Yeah. So one of the things I keep right by my desk is a little picture of a couple birds. And it is to remind me to do things bird by bird. And I don't know if like people know the story. It was a kid that waited to the last minute to do this huge project and they were freaking out. And their dad sat down with them and said, okay, you have to do this bird by bird. So it's essentially doing things one thing at a time. And that helps me with my 40 balls in the air to remember to do things bird by bird.
Yeah. Yeah. Good lesson there, right? Yeah. You can make any kind of progress starting a little bit at a time.
Yep.
That's pretty much in every rule book that I know said 1,000 different ways.
Yep.
Bird by bird is the first time I've heard that one though.
Yeah.
Is that from a book or?
You know what? It's someone once told me that and I found like the story and from there, it gets muddled in memory, but yeah.
Okay. We'll have to Google that.
Find it. Yeah.
I'm sure it's out there. Maybe there's a YouTube video.
Yeah.
For that younger generation who doesn't read.
Yeah.
Which they probably read more than I do, so I shouldn't say anything. Great. Well, it's been great getting to know you. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it and learning about all the good work that the Treasure Chest Foundation is doing. 69 locations, 55 active.
Yep.
Nice. Well done.
All
I'm
right.
sure Colleen is very proud.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I had a great time.
Me too. Thanks again. Till next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.